Welcome, learner, to our lesson today. Today we are looking at the subtopic, training and development. We have been looking at the subtopics under the subject human resource management. And in the previous lessons, we have looked at the subtopic, objectives of training and development. We have looked at the learning organization. We have looked at types of training. We have looked at training needs assessment. We have looked at training design. We have had a chance to look at implementing a training program. We have also looked at evaluation of training and development. We went ahead and looked at career management. And today, under the topic training and development, we are going to look at knowledge management. Our topic for today is knowledge management. Knowledge management. Dear learner, our lesson for today is knowledge management. You have heard of the word or the statement that knowledge is power. And this is also true for organizations. Organizations that share knowledge, those organizations somehow empower themselves, also empower employees in those particular organizations. So what is meant by knowledge management? Now, dear learner, knowledge management is considered as any practice or any process of creating, acquiring, capturing, sharing, and using knowledge whenever it resides to enhance the learning and performance in organizations. So we are saying that knowledge management is the practice of creating, acquiring and sharing knowledge whenever it resides for enhancing organizational performance. So dear learner, in an organization, if you are producing something or you are providing a service, you may need knowledge. You may need this knowledge so that this knowledge can be used in that particular organization to inform decisions about production, to inform decisions about products. So knowledge management is the process of creating, acquiring, sharing, it's supposed to be acquiring and sharing knowledge whenever it resides for the enhancement of organizational performance. So once employees are able to share knowledge wherever it resides, this knowledge may be in manuals, this knowledge may be in other areas and so on. It may be in the minds of the workers, but a situation is put in place where workers can share this particular knowledge. So organizations that use knowledge are called knowledge organizations. So those knowledge organizations are able to compete effectively with other organizations and be able to outperform them and be ahead of their time and be able to be market leaders. So what are some of the components of knowledge management? Components of knowledge management. what are some of the components of knowledge management. So the first component of knowledge management are the people. Components of knowledge management. So one, people. Because people are the ones who drive the knowledge, and this knowledge is initially with the people. So the people in an organization, or the workers, the directors, the owners. So these people provide leadership in relation to the knowledge and focus in terms of how they want to make decisions. Then two, process. Everything that is done in an organization follows a particular process. If it is in a paper, newspaper publishing entity, then you get the knowledge outside there, you get the news outside there, you get features outside there, you publish them in a particular, for example, media, maybe if it is on paper or online. Then once you have now published that particular material, now those particular material go through a particular standard. So that standard, this particular process has gone through, maybe standard operating procedures, is the process through which the knowledge can be condensed, the knowledge can be put together and so on, to be able to provide a service, to be able to provide a product. So the process is also a component of knowledge management, so that as the process comes in terms of the input, the processing, the output and so on, that process becomes a component of the knowledge management process. Then the third thing is content or information technology. Content or information technology. Content or information technology is also a component of knowledge management. So if the content, that information has been contained on a particular media, then that information is shared among the stakeholders within that particular context. Then that content, that coding and that contextualization and information technology in terms of linking the users, that is a third component of the knowledge management that can be applied in particular organizations. Then the fourth thing is the strategy. So what kind of strategy is likely to be adopted in relation to knowledge management? So the strategy that is adopted, and many organizations compete at the strategic level. So the strategic level and the kind of focus an organization takes, that is what can make it competitive and be able to at least respond to the environmental factors. So the components of knowledge management, you have the people, you have the process, and as we have been saying, the people are the most important asset any organization can have. So the caliber of people that an organization maintains, the kind of processes that an organization, for example, adopts, the kind of content or information technology or IT that an organization, for example, adopts, and the kind of strategy, then these ones form the components of knowledge management. The level at which an organization can now be able to fit into the scheme of things will be dictated by how they do those, they manage these particular components of knowledge management. Then the next thing we want to look at is types of knowledge. There are various types of knowledge that may be available at the disposal of a given organization. So you have the types of knowledge, types of knowledge management, types of knowledge. That this one is types of knowledge. When you need to manage knowledge, then you need to have an idea of the types of knowledge. The types of knowledge that may exist. So depending on the types of knowledge that are there, so you have what you call, number one, priori knowledge. Number one, priori knowledge. Priori knowledge. So you have the first type of knowledge indicated as priori knowledge, and this priori knowledge is independent from experience. This is independent from experience. Priori knowledge is independent from experience. It means whether the person has experience or not, that person can be able to have that priori knowledge. Then we have a second category of knowledge, or a second type of knowledge, that is called posteriori. Posteriori knowledge. Posteriori knowledge. This posteriori knowledge is knowledge that is dependent on experience. Individuals have to go through the process. If it is the production of a particular machine, the production of a particular metal, or the production of a particular process or service, an individual has to be taken through that process so that the individual gains what is called posteriori knowledge, where the individual is gaining that experience, that particular knowledge based on experience. Then there's what is called propositional knowledge. Propositional knowledge. Propositional knowledge. Now, when it comes to propositional knowledge, we have talked about priori knowledge, we have talked about posteriori knowledge. When it comes to propositional knowledge, an individual requires to accept a proposition that one knows. A proposition known to an individual. A proposition known to an individual. So you have propositional knowledge, and this kind of knowledge, an individual is supposed to accept a proposition that is known to that particular individual. So there is also what is called non-propositional knowledge. And when it comes to the non-propositional knowledge, one is said to know based on acquaintance. Propositional. We are saying propositional knowledge, and then non-propositional knowledge. Non-propositional knowledge. Non-propositional knowledge. So here, the individual, when it comes to non-propositional knowledge, the individual is supposed to know based on acquaintance. Based on acquaintance. Then 5, we have what we call explicit knowledge. This one can be knowledge that can be in the books. Explicit knowledge. Explicit knowledge. Explicit knowledge. Now, this kind of knowledge, explicit knowledge, this kind of knowledge, you can have this knowledge on manuals. You can have this knowledge on books. And this knowledge is encoded. This knowledge is encoded in such a way that an individual can be able to transfer this knowledge from a book to somebody else, can be shared very easily. Then there is also what is called number 6, tacit knowledge. Tacit knowledge. Now, this is knowledge that is based on intuition and mind. This knowledge is in the mind of a given person, in the mind of an individual, and this knowledge is difficult to share. Difficult to share. This kind of knowledge is very difficult to share because the individual will come to the workplace with his or her knowledge in his mind, and for you to be able to share this individual knowledge with others is very difficult, yet this kind of knowledge is critical for decision making. So what organizations do? Organizations try to create environments where individuals who have tacit knowledge, individuals who have experience, are encouraged to interact through meetings, through trainings, through sessions, through departments, to be able to share this knowledge. And this knowledge becomes the knowledge that individuals can be able to share with others, but it is very difficult. Organizations must be able to persuade individuals to be able to share this knowledge with others for the sake of the organization, and an environment that is so conducive has to be created. So, dear learner, we have looked at the priori knowledge. This is independent from experience. We have looked at what is called posteriori, that is priori knowledge. This one is independent from experience. Posteriori knowledge, this is dependent on the experience. Individuals have to go through this to acquire that particular knowledge. Propositional knowledge, where an individual has to accept a proposition that is known to that particular individual. Non-propositional knowledge, this is now based on acquaintance, maybe familiarity with that particular kind of knowledge. Explicit knowledge, this is contained on manuals, books, and is encoded and can be shared among the workers. Then we have tacit explicit knowledge, which we have said is on manuals, and tacit knowledge, which is based on the intuition and the mind of a given individual. And organizations have to be very creative and innovative for workers to be able to share this particular knowledge. So what you are saying, organizations that advance themselves try to create an environment where they can be able to use this particular knowledge as a competitive advantage for the activities that they carry out within their contexts and so on. So dear learner, today we have been looking at our topic on knowledge management, where we have indicated that knowledge management is the practice of creating, acquiring, and sharing knowledge whenever that knowledge resides or exists for enhancing organizational performance. Then we have indicated that some of the components of knowledge management may include the people, which we have said is people are the most important assets that any organization can have. Then we have talked about the process through which the knowledge and the activities are done within an organization. So that becomes a knowledge that an organization has that makes it to compete and outdo others in the market. Then the content or information technology, the way organizations share that information. And when it comes to the strategy, these are the tactics that that organization adopts in its particular market. Now, when it comes to the types of knowledge, we have looked at the priori knowledge, posteriori knowledge, we have looked at propositional knowledge, we have looked at non-propositional knowledge, we have also looked at and explained what is meant by explicit knowledge and also what is meant by tacit knowledge. So organizations that aspire to be the best must ensure that they come up with appropriate knowledge management tactics, appropriate knowledge management arrangements to be able to harness the skills that can make them compete. So your assignment for today, dear learner, assignment, discuss the types of knowledge. Discuss the types of knowledge. So we have come to the end of our lesson today, where we were looking at knowledge management, and we have looked at the meaning of knowledge management. We have looked at the components of knowledge management, and we have looked at the types of knowledge. So dear learner, your assignment is discuss the types of knowledge. So thank you for being active.